factor another quadratic. This is a quadratic because it has 3 terms and the highest degree is 2. So the first thing we want to check is to see if there is a common factor. There is not. I cannot factor a 3 out of 13 or a 3 out of 4, and 4 doesn't have an x, so there's no common factors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my x off here to the side. This is my thinking box. I'm going to take my first coefficient, my leading coefficient, and then my constant. I want to pay particular attention to what signs they are. I multiply those together. So 3 times 4 is 12. Then I simply take the coefficient of my middle term, including the sign, which is negative 13, and I put it at the bottom of the x. So now I have to think, what are the factors of 12 that equal negative 13? Well, 12 times 1 equals 12. 12 plus 1 equals 13. I want it to be negative, so both these factors have to be negative. So notice that negative 12 and negative 1 gives me my negative 13. So now I'm going to rewrite my quadratic by simply copying down my first term. And then instead of writing negative 13x, I'm going to write negative 12x minus 1x. I'll put that 1 there because it might be visually helpful for me. And then copy down the 4. Now I'm going to do factoring by grouping. I have 4 terms. Make them into 2 separate groups. I'm going to look at my first group and I'm going to ask myself, what can I factor out of my first group? Well, I can factor out a 3x from both terms. So I'm factoring out a 3x from both terms. Notice I have 2 terms, so when I factor out a 3x, I should have 2 terms here. Sometimes it's helpful to write in, I'm dividing by 3x, and I'm dividing by 3x to figure out what goes on the inside. So 3x squared divided by 3x just simply gives me x. Negative 12x divided by 3x gives me negative 4. So that's the first group. Now let's look at the second group. Notice that I have a negative. Anytime I have a negative here, chances are I'm going to want to factor out a negative. So I'm actually going to factor out a negative 1. Make sure you write the sign, even if it's positive. You still want to write that sign because that's going to help you with the next step. So I'm going to have a binomial left after I factor. So just as a reminder, you may want to do this. So I have negative 1x divided by negative 1. So that leaves me with x. And then I have 4 divided by negative 1, which gives me negative 4. So once again, notice we have a common binomial that can be factored out. So I factor out that common binomial, which is x minus 4, and what I have left is 3x minus 1. So I have just factored 3x squared minus 13x plus 4. And the factors are x minus 4 times 3x minus 1.